Bromance on the brink? This editorial critiques the crumbling U.S.-India bromance amid escalating trade and diplomatic tensions. The week before Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was to arrive in the United States, he received an unwelcome gift. Unwelcome gift is an ironic phrase implying an undesirable or humiliating present. Here it sets the stage for a significant diplomatic affront occurring just before Modi's U.S. visit. A military plane from the U.S. carrying around 100 undocumented Indian migrants was sent to Indian Punjab. This sentence reports that a U.S. military plane transported approximately 100 undocumented Indian migrants to Punjab, highlighting a provocative action affecting India. The men had endured the 40-hour journey from detention centers in the U.S. to India in shackles. Endured emphasizes the suffering of the migrants. 40-hour journey and in shackles vividly illustrate the harsh conditions they faced during deportation. More such flights followed, with the total number of Indian deportees from the U.S. crossing 330 in under 2 weeks. This line indicates that deportations continued rapidly, with over 330 individuals deported in a short period, underscoring the scale of the issue. Heart-rending ordeals have been described by the deportees who have been subjected to such treatment by President Donald Trump's administration that is intent on getting them out of the U.S. Heart-rending ordeals means extremely distressing experiences. This sentence attributes the harsh treatment to a deliberate policy by Trump's administration aimed at removing these migrants. It must therefore have been a humiliating time for Modi, who has long been a fan of Trump, with whom he shares the same authoritarian inclinations. The sentence suggests that Modi, known to admire Trump, likely felt embarrassed by the situation. Authoritarian inclinations implies both leaders have similar hardline political tendencies. Ever since Modi's 2019 visit to the U.S. and Trump's return trip the next year, with both men speaking to packed audiences during their respective visits, Indians in general and Modi in particular had imagined that the bromance between the two leaders set them apart from the rest. Bromance here is a colloquial term referring to a close, friendly relationship between two male leaders. This line explains that such a rapport was celebrated and seen as exceptional. Considering the punishments that the Trump administration has been raining down on so many other countries, they thought that they would be spared. Raining down is a metaphor indicating heavy, unrelenting action. The sentence implies that India expected preferential treatment despite similar global policies. But the first plane full of deportees undoubtedly rattled nerves. Rattled nerves is an idiomatic expression meaning cause anxiety or shock. This event clearly disturbed India's leadership. In the run-up to the actual meeting, Indian television anchors continued to praise the two men's cozy relationship, plastering screens with images from the rallies in Houston and Ahmedabad. The phrase cozy relationship implies an intimate, friendly rapport. Plastering screens suggests widespread media coverage that reinforces a positive narrative. The nerves were not just because of the plane load of deportees. This emphasizes that the anxiety stemmed from multiple factors, not solely the deportation incident. In the new era of trade that the Trump administration seems eager to pioneer, tariffs reign supreme and trade deficits are determinative. Tariffs reign supreme is a metaphor meaning tariffs are the most important factor. Trade deficits are determinative, implies that imbalances in trade are seen as key indicators of economic health. By these metrics, India would be hit hard. This suggests that under the new trade policies, India stands to suffer significant economic consequences. This became obvious hours before the meeting when President Trump announced that the U.S. would be slapping reciprocal tariffs on every country who charged America tariffs. Slapping is a colloquial verb here meaning to impose harshly. Reciprocal tariffs means retaliatory taxes on imports, indicating a blunt trade policy. The Trump administration was also peeved about the enormous trade deficit between the two countries, $45.6 billion in favor of India. Peeved is an informal word meaning annoyed. The $45.6 billion trade deficit is highlighted as a major grievance from the U.S. perspective. In the Trumpian worldview, such deficits are the direct result of the high tariffs that a particular economy, in this case, India, is charging the U.S. for access to their consumer market. This sentence explains that Trump attributes trade imbalances to India's tariff policies, blaming them for hindering U.S. access to the Indian market. During his election campaign, Trump had actually referred to India as a big abuser of trade ties. Big abuser is a harsh label used by Trump to criticize India's trade practices, reinforcing his tough stance. He said that India would need to step up its purchases of gas, oil, and defense equipment from America. This statement outlines Trump's proposed remedy, increasing Indian imports of specific goods to balance trade. Despite the support for Trump, the right-wing Hindutva establishment that props up Modi was essentially given a scolding. Right-wing Hindutva establishment refers to the conservative, nationalist groups in India. Given a scolding means that they were effectively rebuked by the outcomes of these policies. During his recent visit, when Modi embraced Trump, the latter did not seem to be as effusive. Effusive means overly expressive. This suggests that Trump's warm reception was notably muted, hinting at underlying tensions. While Indian media streaming the event live tried to put a positive spin on the two men's meeting, highlighting what Trump said about Modi's negotiating skills, "He's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me." The meeting, by any objective standard, was not a success, central to which was the fact that Modi came back without any waivers on the reciprocal tariffs issue. This sentence describes how the media attempted to frame the meeting positively despite the outcome. The quoted remark contrasts the leaders' negotiating styles, yet the critical point is that Modi did not secure any concessions on tariffs. According to Reuters, in 2023, India imposed an aggregates-weighted tariff of 11 PC on American goods, which is higher than what the U.S. charges India. Aggregates-weighted tariff is a technical term for the overall tariff rate calculated by weighting different goods. 11 PC means 11%. This comparison highlights an imbalance in trade policy. In certain sectors, tariffs were even higher. Here, this emphasizes that the tariff differences are not uniform, with some industries facing even steeper taxes. For instance, the White House said in a fact sheet, the U.S. average applied most favored nation tariff on agricultural goods is 5 PC, but India's average applied MFN tariff is 39 PC. India also charges a 100 PC tariff on U.S. motorcycles, while we only charge a 2.4 PC tariff on Indian motorcycles. The detailed statistics provide concrete examples of the tariff discrepancies. Most favored nation, MFN tariff, is a standard trade measure. The stark differences in percentages illustrate the severe imbalance. With such announcements coming out of the White House even before Modi's arrival in Washington, the outcome of the meeting was more or less expected. This indicates that these pre-meeting declarations set the stage for an anticipated unsatisfactory outcome. Trump announced no waivers just because India was special or because he and Modi were good buddies. The quotation marks around special and good buddies suggest these are casual terms that were not enough to override policy. The sentence stresses that preferential treatment was not given despite any close relationship. Prime Minister Modi and I have agreed that we will be in negotiations to address the long-running disparities, Trump said instead, referring to the U.S.-India trade relationship. This quote is used to show that Trump offered only vague promises of future negotiations rather than concrete concessions. But really, we want a certain level of playing field, which we really think we're entitled to. This final quotation, incomplete in the text, implies that the U.S. expects a fairer trade balance, asserting entitlement to such a level. Modi walked away having been told that his country, which now buys oil and gas from other countries, would now have to buy it from the U.S. and then ship it all the way from the U.S. to India. The statement indicates a significant trade rearrangement, implying that India would face higher costs and logistical challenges. This purchase will be a lot more expensive than the ones India has been used to. A lot more expensive is a straightforward expression indicating increased costs, highlighting the negative economic impact. Trump also offered the possibility for India purchasing F-35 as something that may sound good, but that camouflages the fact that India would now likely have to buy whatever expensive defense goods the U.S. chooses to produce or sell to it so that the trade deficit narrows. The mention of F-35's advanced fighter jets is used as a potential offer. However, the sentence argues that this is a cover for a broader strategy to force India to accept expensive U.S. products, thereby affecting trade balance. All this is not good news for Modi. This brief sentence sums up the negative implications for Indian leadership. Despite the support for Trump, the right-wing Hindutva establishment that props up Modi was essentially given a scolding. This reiterates that even those who traditionally support Modi were rebuked by the outcome of these policies. The reciprocal tariffs are likely to slow down India's growth rate even further, as it has to buy expensive things it does not need to bring down the trade deficit. Reciprocal tariffs refer to the retaliatory taxes imposed by the U.S. The sentence argues that these will hamper India's economic growth by forcing it to import unnecessarily expensive goods. All this may even cause Indian manufacturers to have decreased access to the American consumer market if Modi does not bring down tariffs. This warns that unresolved trade imbalances could lead to reduced export opportunities for Indian companies, further affecting the economy. The U.S. is in the process of instituting a new foreign policy, one which is harsh and unapologetically self-serving. Instituting a new foreign policy implies a significant shift in strategy. Harsh and unapologetically self-serving characterizes the policy as severe and focused solely on national interests. India, where Islamophobia has been made a part of national culture, felt that the also Islamophobic Trump may make exceptions for them. This sentence notes that India, despite its own issues with Islamophobia, expected preferential treatment from Trump due to perceived shared biases. The new America under Trump, however, is simply not interested. This stark statement asserts that Trump's administration is indifferent to India's expectations. At the press conference during his visit, Modi mouthed an overwrought comparison and combination of Make America Great Again and Make India Great Again, mega partnership for prosperity. Overwrought means excessively emotional. The blending of slogans from both countries is criticized as lacking sincerity, while mega partnership for prosperity is portrayed as an empty, buzzword-laden promise. To nobody, except the Modi supporters in the room, did this statement make sense. This implies that the statement was nonsensical to most, reinforcing the idea that it was more for show than substantive policy. Published in Dawn, February 22, 2025.